This is one of those videos where, man, I should have started early on in the video and recorded some of this tune-up. This one came in completely rusted, which is totally fine. So I'm now getting it back to life. So the chain was completely rusted, like its partner here with that kind of a chain. Completely rusted, but it was workable and movable. So I'm looking to try to save the customer money and get his daughters back on their bike. He specifically requested to get rid of these flippy, junky pedals. He knows they're cheap, they broke, and so those would be replaced. I've already inflated the tires, and I said, whoops, this one almost blew off the rim. I said, whoa, it did not blow up the tube though, so thank goodness. I do see, however, it needs a rim strip. So I will be taking that one off, replacing the rim strip, putting that back together. I already sprayed a bunch of oil on the chain, and the chain is very workable. The bottom bracket is loose. There's a lot of play right there. I've already replaced a totally corroded rear brake cable with new grease. I've already sprayed and then lubed all the oil points and every point that I could. I took out the seat, I greased the seat post. I took out the handlebar stem, I greased the quill, and I raised the handlebar stem a little bit, just to probably make it more comfortable for the daughter. And then my next step is to readjust this rear brake. Of course it was rubbing. It probably never worked right from the beginning. It's got too much play in the brake lever, but I'm gonna adjust this first. Then I'll adjust the play in the brake lever. So right now I'm looking at the distance to the rim and making sure that this brake pad is set up where it has good contact on the rim. It's not diving below the rim where the brake pad hits it. You want to get an even contact. This one I saw earlier is diving below the rim. So I'm going to adjust it. I'm going to adjust that. The rim's here and the pad's diving below. So I'm going to adjust it to where the pad is more direct with the rim wall. This is a lot for a basic little tune-up, but that's all right. It's going to be safe. And the kids are going to be thrilled because it probably never rolled smoothly like that, because I don't think probably ever the brake was ever adjusted. Now there's too much play in the lever there, so I'll adjust and tighten. On most dome nutted fixing side brakes here, it's a 10 millimeter. A lot of other ones have 5 millimeter Allens, but this is a dome nut. It's a 10 millimeter. Same thing with your fixing nuts on your rear and front derailleur. They're 9 millimeters. You can do with a 9 millimeter wrench. All these things save you time and money. Now that is much better. Now I've purposefully bucked this adjuster barrel out a bit to make sure that I gave myself enough play to work it in and get decent feel on the brake lever. So these little things, give yourself back out that adjusting barrel, and now that's about perfect. You got good play, and I'm going to see if it's still rolling smooth. That's a little tight, so I'm going to adjust this cable just a tiny bit. Check my brake lever and then spin the wheel. Still rubbing a bit, so now I check and say, all right, looking to see if the wheel's true. Adjusting here. And I think these adjuster screws here, I'm going to tighten the spring a little bit, and that'll force it, tighten the spring and pull it against this spring's force. Getting a little better, but it's still kind of tight. I'm going to adjust this. This is what bicycles and bicycle maintenance all about millimeters. That's pretty good, and I'm going to readjust here. This pad is getting a little bit uneven, so I'm going to get that evened up. And we are looking pretty good on that. This side's got a little bit of rub, so I always spray these adjuster screws here for the tension with oil beforehand, because these little housings a bunch of times are plastic. That's looking really good. And the plastic will crack and break if it's a dried, rusted old screw. So spray it with some oil, and before I go cranking on, tightening it up, I will always back that screw out, let the oil work its way into the threads a little, and then tighten the screw up. Give myself a tap. You don't want to poke yourself with a frayed cable end. Those frayed cable ends are so sharp, and they pierce your skin so quickly, and they hurt so bad, it's ridiculous. So this rear tire is holding air, which is great. While I'm on the rear, I'll go ahead and look at the derailleur. I'm going to go ahead and take off these pedals. The customer said, I do not want these pedals. You pedal forward. Comes off. Throw them in the trash. If he wants them, I will offer them, but probably pedal forward on both sides. We'll take these pedals off. He'll probably say, throw those pedals away. Take some grease. Grease the threads. Take some grease. Grease the threads. They look good. These are 1/2-inch pedals. I think I have some. Let's see. Since there are 2 of these bikes, I'm going to make sure that I have matching pedals, because boy, if you have daughters and they have something different on their bike, it will be a fight. So, and I don't want to be in the middle of it. So there are 2 matching pedals that are going on these 2 bicycles. So a little bit of bike mechanicking, a little bit of fathering with 2 daughters. You can look on there, it says left for you. Before I usually put these in, when they come out of the box, they're brand new, but the axle might be a little bit stiff against the bearings. So I'll spray a little bit of oil in there just to loosen up, probably just some grease that's just been in there, sitting for a while. And when I spray a little bit of oil in there, it frees up a little bit of that grease. And you'll find you pedal backwards on these, and then hopefully get purchase on the threads. These are very basic threads on a very basic crank. These are not engaging very nicely. So on this particular one, I'm probably going to thread it from this side. That'll help me clean up the threads if they thread in here. may have to come back to this one. So I'll come back to that one because it is not going very easily. This one, let's see if it wants to. I'll spray a little bit of oil in my bearing surface there, and it frees it up nicely. See if this will. Boy, oh boy, okay. I know what you're saying. Marcus, is that a 9/16? There's no way a 9/16 would be so much bigger. So I'll come back to those. I have to clean up those threads. I use a little file and get those. While I've got it like this, then I'll say, all right, let's go ahead and see if, as I suspected, that rear derailleur cable is completely corroded and seized up. It'll need to be replaced. This is a 9mm, which is very stubborn. So we'll bring out the heavy duty crescent wrench. Break it loose. Go back to my 9mm. It's a nice, quick service. Peel that out of here, other way, because the cable end is here. I'm going to hold on to the housing because I'll lube it. And it's very dried and there's a rusty spot. And yeah, so this is just corroded and just gone. There's another nice rusty spot. I don't know if you can see that against whatever background there is, but that is a goner. You pull that out of the housing here. And so that, because this is lined housing, and I can lube it and it will function very well. Let's see if we're lucky, and this has a port. That doesn't. So that means these things will have to, this shift lever will have to come off. That means taking off that grip, which always begs the most popular question: why do I have hairspray in the bike shop? And this is why: to install or remove grips, a little hairspray, put it on there. Just get a help with a helping hand. And it comes right off, and then that'll go back on same way with the hairspray, and it provides a bit of sticky to install that grip. Now this has a fixing screw in the back. It's like a 3mm or whatever it is, and so I have my super small Allen wrench. Actually, take that back. I don't need to do that because these two things are clipped together, and sometimes they will pop apart, sometimes they won't. Oftentimes I have to take it off, because the inside of this will often use a little compression type clip in here. It's on the inside, it's like this little teeth. If it's on the handlebar, it doesn't allow it to kind of squeeze in. So now we're going to see if I can pull this apart, and there it goes. So I have the action spring, which is ridiculous to have that. It's usually just a little clip. So I have that. This is apart. Take this out. And this is a lot for a basic shifter, but that's the way it is. Got my ultra super small screwdriver to pry this out of here. And I just felt this thing is like 2 pieces in here, which is another design that's just basic. That's okay. These girls just want to ride. I always, there's a lot of corrosion on this cable. A lot of rusty spots. So this one's gone. These little girls don't care. They just want to ride their bike. The new cable, dropped it. We'll go into this little fixing spot. It'll drive down through the adjuster barrel, the exit there, and down through. Go ahead and get this all the way fixed in here, and that's in place. Then figure out where this spring goes. I think I just found it. There's a little fixing pin, the spring. Let's see if that's the magic trick, because it doesn't look like, oh no, I do see it. You notice I'm going to hold with my thumb where the fixing pin is on here, pry this side out. Well, not with the awl. I'll have to get the super small screwdriver. There we go. And holding this piece together, because it looks like it fits into this. You can see that little fixing pin. See how this goes. Oh boy, won't this be fun. Let's see if we can get this on here. Everything is in place. This thing here. Into here. And into here. Boy, these shifters are just a dream. Yep. There's one of those little retaining clips. So I'll just leave that for the side for now, because I'll come back to it. I'll need it in just a minute. And this should snap into place where the, there it goes, perfect. There's a little guide tooth in there, a key tooth in that shifter, and snaps in. Now what I'll do, step on it with my foot and feel if I have that shifter engaged, as you see, and I can feel the cable is engaged and it's in the right place. I put this crazy little clip back on. It's one of those little retaining clips somehow. Okay, and that holds that together. Then this goes back on in here. Put away my teeny tiny screwdriver so I don't lose it. Three or whatever Allen wrench this is, 2.5. Let's see what it says. It says a 2 on the handle, a 2 millimeter. Isn't that ridiculous? And there's a fixing nut right there, a fixing bolt. Then, say, all right. Many of these have a little sliding washer. Keeps this rubber from rubbing against the grip of the shifter and affecting the shift. So slide that little washer in, and then watch this. Wow, look how great that is. That works on golf clubs. It works on, you know, anything with a rubber grip, a shovel, a little hairspray. Works wonders. Now it's installed. I'm going to double check again. And I do feel that the cable is moving as it should. Not the hairspray, but I'll take the spray lube and I'm going to lube a bit into this housing. Make sure that's in there when I roll this through. I'm also old school style. Sometimes these have been outside, so you would line this housing with just a little bit of grease. I'm sorry, the cable. And that grease would just get in there and just help prevent a little bit of corrosion. And I'm just moving it on there with my fingers. I go through this housing over to the end. Put that up into the shifter. sure that's securely in. Now I always on the shifter, if there's an adjuster barrel here, I'll back that out just a couple of turns. For the same reason that I might need a little bit of adjustment in that direction when I install the cable. So that's good to have. Find your cable guide in the bottom bracket. Find your guide here. A little bit of oil in the housing. Yes, I know these bicycles are very basic. Now this particular one has a split ferrule here, so I'm going to cut that off. We're going to get a new end cap on there because that's only going to get worse, and it's not going to be, everything's going to fray or be bad. And we just had a tune-up, and I don't want to have that come back and say this was all bad. Take my awl, open up the opening. Get an end cap. The luck of the draw just happens to be black. It's cool. And let's throw this here. That's here. I can't remember if I sprayed this housing, so I'm going to spray it again. Now that you know that adjuster barrel now is out like this and exposed, now I can take a moment and go ahead. I already sprayed the outside of it, but I can get to the inside where I saw some rust, and just make sure that that little adjuster barrel is very helpful too. Don't leave any adjuster barrel out. You want to go ahead and be equal opportunity adjuster barrel mechanic. Here's the quiz. What millimeter for this rear derailleur fixing bolt? 9. It's also the same for the fronts when they have them there. Is a 9 millimeter fixing bolt. Test of knowledge, because that's what teachers do, is test your knowledge frequently. Even though students hate it, but that's okay. Now I have good movement on the rear derailleur. See if I can move it over here and see if I have decent adjustment. Now I don't. So now I'm going to go here. This is really basic. This particular one has an attached hanger. You can take this guy and you can give it a little bit of a pull because it's soft metal. It's not anything really high tensile, and align that just a bit. Pedal. And I'm looking for that, and I'm looking for, do this to pre-stress this cable. A lot of play there. So I'll go ahead and take that and tighten that up at the fixing bolt instead of the adjuster barrels, because that's a lot of slack in that cable. And then go ahead and tighten that one up. See if this is here. And we have 1 gear. We have 2, 3, 4. I always stop here before, and I make sure that I'm going very slow on the next shift, because if it overshifts, even with the dork disc, get into the spokes and everything blows up, right? I slow down and I pedal slowly and I shift, and it made it. But then I'm going to pull on this shifter some more to see if I have any play here. And there's a little bit. Don't know if you can see that. So I'm going to look back here and see if there's enough play before hitting the spokes. space. And there's space there, so I'm not too worried about that. A little bit of extra movement. A will seems a little too much for me. So I will take this limit screw, and I'm going to screw this in, so half a turn. And now I'm going to look at the play there again. Still got a little too much. I just want a tiny bit. I've stopped it completely, so I'm going to back out that limit screw. And I've got just a tiny bit of extra movement to make sure that you shift and it goes into the low gear, but doesn't throw it into the spokes. And that worked out pretty well. Now, let's see. Next thing I notice here, that might be actually better with the pedals off because the bottom bracket is loose. So, this is a, let's see here. I don't know if it'll pull it, but if you can see it, I'm not going to make too much of a deal. You can see way over here, this is a simple fixing nut, one-piece style bottom bracket and adjusting cup here and a cone. So I'm going to take that with a wrench and a screwdriver and adjust that little notched cone. You take first here and you loosen the fixing nut, which is reverse thread, so it's righty loosey. Then I'm going to take a screwdriver and move that notched, fixed, notched adjustable cup until it's very loose right now, so I'm not worried about. Still have play. I'm screwing this side in, it's lefty-tighty because it's a reverse thread. And I've got it to where free moving is pretty good. And I know that from experience, when I tighten this fixing nut down, that it is going to actually back that adjustable cup out. So a little bit tight is okay, because I know when I do this, tighten that down a bunch of times, not this time, but a bunch of times, that thing may back out and give me just a little bit of play. To me, right, dropped it, that feels a little bit tight, so I'm going to back it off just a tiny bit. I want this little girl to have the best experience on this bicycle she can have. It's still too tight. I don't like it. So slip that. That feels good. I'm going to try one more just because, you know, why not? See if I can get it just super basic bottom bracket, but if it can be, it's already going to be better than new. I know that. And I've overdid it. So now I've moved the adjustable cup and I have play. So now I know the point of no return. So now I will tighten this adjustable cup, and I know that I am right at the point of perfect adjustment. I have no play. I've got good spin. Earlier, before I thought about the video, I already sprayed the inside of these gaps in the cups in the bottom bracket, and I'm going to do it again just to say, and and make sure that that old grease in there is freed up. So you spray in there with some oil, just free up the space. Spray it in here. And it was amazing just with a couple turns like this of what it felt like with some fresh oil that just works into that old grease. Been sitting there for, who knows, months or years. Not sure if this is worth looking at or not or seeing, but we'll find out. Since we're at the pedal part now, I'm going to take a crack. I'm going to make sure that's left. That's all right. See if I can get this started again. And it took the bare hand feel to it, so that worked. So these pedals will go on, and this will be pedal backwards, installs the pedal. Get over here, get some torque on it. By the way, when I took them off, originally they came off almost hand tight, so we get a good push on that for torque. Let's see if I'm lucky enough for bare-handed style. Get the feel on that without the gloves. And get that started. And bare hands gets to win. Again, yay. Pedal backwards, installs the pedals. Get a little dust up there. I like to come around, get the point of good leverage, use the crank arm to push and pull at the same time and get a very tight pedal. No one wants their child to have the pedal unthread and come off the bike. That's always bad. Always bad. Whenever I get the chance, my favorite tool, if I ever get to use it, I use this Campagnolo 15mm wrench. And I get to use it here. It's a beautiful, fine piece of machinery on the wrench on this very basic bike, which is just fine with me. Loosen up the, let's see if we can get a better angle. Hope you see it. Loosen the cable little hook there from the V-brake, and sometimes I've gone on the department store bikes here, and axle nuts are just hand threaded. Like one of them's like air wrench tight, like, you know, with like 1,000 pounds of torque. The other side's just like thread on by hand. And have like this air wrench drill or something, and it's ridiculous. And you know, so I know it's just people that are just, there's the wheel. It's just kids or people that are just building these bikes at a frantic pace by the hundreds. While the wheel, when any tire is off, I'm always going to check the inside, see if there's anything I feel. Any good mechanic will do that. I'm going to check, make sure I got the rim strip out of there. And I do. And then just look at the tube. And it held air before, and it blew up like a balloon, but it didn't pop. So yay, lucky me. I avoided the extra expense. I know it's a little bit more expensive. The absolute best rim tape ever for anything is Velox cloth rim tape. It just is great, low pressure, high pressure. It doesn't care, and it's absolutely not going to allow any of the spoke nipples to poke through and to puncture a tube. It's not going to allow anything to mess with it at all, because it is big, bad. This is 22mm, which is my go-to size now, because it protects almost all rims. Get that around, move the rim tape. I just use a nail punch to hold my spot, because that tape will move around, and I put it in there. Give myself some scissors. at the end. That's enough to hold on to for maybe something extra. So I'm holding that piece because this is only a 20-inch wheel, maybe 18. I don't know. This looks like a. This is a 20. It is 20-inch wheel. These tires do not have a directional on them, so I'm looking there, and neither do the hubs. Right. See if I can get that on there. You put over the first bead, take your tube, find your valve hole. It should be opposite the reflector. It's the usual standard is valve holes opposite reflector, which it is. Put that in, flip your tire over. Hands of a pro can always do this quickly. Pop this over. I usually have this leaning up against my bench. It's easy to get the leverage. And then there I am. And I'm going to go ahead and inflate it while it's I inflate it a little bit. Look at it. Look at the seating. Just to where it's firm. Oh darn, I hear a leak at the valve. So, unlucky turn of events. This one will get a new tube. I just like to squeeze the tire like this, get more of that air out of the tube. This one ended up being not so lucky. I thought it held when I had it inflated earlier, but obviously there is a leak. I heard it right there at the valve. Can't use that one. Take it opposite the valve, pull the tube out. Take that one out, and that's trash. Leave this for a second. Entertain yourselves while I go get a tube. New inner tube, check. I like to pre-inflate these a bit, right? To give them some shape. Reinstall valve stem. Flip over the first bead. That in. While it's loose like that, go ahead and line up that valve stem nice and straight. It may come a little crooked once you seat this, but if you can get it nice and straight from the get-go, then that's all the better. Working the bead back over, and that's on. And I kept that valve fairly straight. If there's enough left in this tank, there it is. Good. And that one is holding and firm, and I don't hear any leaks. Valve cap on there. And the valve cap on the rear. But it is still holding. And I mentioned this is my favorite wrench of all time. The Campagnolo 15mm, otherwise known as the peanut butter wrench, because that's perfectly sized to get peanut butter from a jar of peanut butter. These have the funny little fork guides. So I have to put those little clips in space, in their little space from the washer, and then trickily screw in fixing bolt, fixing nut, while that little spacer is held in with the 11th finger, and enough to where the little spacer will hold in. Same thing on this side. Hold it in, screw this in where that little spacer is held in place. Otherwise, it'll pop right out. Get to retire this tool for the next job. And I don't know if you noticed, everything that I have is on caster rollers. I can move my bench around easily and really makes it more efficient. Fixing bolts on brakes are almost always 10 millimeter, unless they're 5 millimeter Allen. This one I'm loosening so that I can get to this cable and hopefully has enough lube in this one to where it'll be nice and smooth, and that is perfect stuff for this. The tri-flow with the little needly tube, that is the perfect lube for that job, and that came nicely. The rear was super corroded, super rusty, and I just replaced it. This one looks good, and we're going to go with it. 10 millimeter here. Same thing, don't even forget, I'm going to back out this adjuster barrel so that I got a little bit of play there if I need it. May not need it. It's nice to have it if you need it. Get it out of the way. Pull these in with your hand. Uh-oh. Get that into the little keyed fitting. Pull these in with your hands. Hold them some way. I'm going to back it up just a little to allow a little play. And fix that with the fixing bolt. And see what kind of play I have. Now this is a little bit looser. There's a little more picking out, so I'm going to have to tighten some of that up. And while it's loose like that, I'm going to check where it hits the rim. This one is absolutely hitting the tire. And I notice here it's a little bit off on how I installed the front tire. So I need to loosen and make sure that I get this front tire centered as best it can be. Many times these fork dropouts are not aligned. They're soft metal. They're easily bent. Many times you have to maybe just bend them back with some tools. This side is hitting nice and flush and even with the rim. This side is not. It's hitting very high up on the tire. If it does that, it'll wear to the tire and destroy the tire and give you a flat tube. So we gotta lower that to get a good alignment with the wall of the rim. And we'll check it. Here. When I do this, it still hits a little low, so that tells me okay. Bring this up. By the way, if anyone watched today, April 2nd, the Dwarves the Vlaanderen race as a warm-up to the Tour of Flanders. It was amazing. You absolutely should go watch it. An American, Nielsen Paulus, rode an incredible race. I will not give you the spoilers, but you absolutely need to watch it. It was an incredible finish with 3 Lotto riders and 1 EF rider. If you're a professional or watch professional cycling, you already know the deal. But there is another American, Magnus Sheffield, who was also in the finish with those 4. Now, these are hitting unevenly. First, I see that this tension screw is really dialed in tight. So it's really pulling this arm, really tight spring, pulling it over. This side's much looser. It does not have as much tension. So I'm first just gonna back off. I've already oiled these, so I know they got oil on them. I'm gonna back that off a few turns and see if that evens up the pull. Since I know this was really dry and corroded earlier, I'm gonna go ahead and freshen up the oil on those, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add tension to this side and see if I can start to balance the springs. This one seems really sticky. So there, I got a little bit of movement out of it. Gonna get the oil. There we go. Now we got way more movement than I anticipated. So let's get it all evened up. Right now we're just going back and forth with the tension, trying to work in the oil that I sprayed earlier to see. There we go. So now we have some even movement. If I saw that and I felt some of the tension stickiness, I'm going to spray more lube. I did this earlier, but this works its way between the post and the spacers to get that free movement on. And now we're fairly even, but not so much. You know? That's pretty good. That is the little bit loose though. So since I have that set, and I don't know, there it is. Quiz for knowledge. What size wrench for your fixing bolt? A 10 millimeter for brake fixing bolts. Oh, now that is perfect and even, and that's just level. That is as good as that will ever get, and this cable is way too long. That's not acceptable. And it's an old cable, so I might need a little cleaner cut. And a cable cap. Everything I have is within one step of my work stand. I have a roll around, one of these Husky Home Depot tool benches, and then a bunch of plastic bins and drawers. Maybe I'll remember to show you this upon completion. So that feels great. I like to lower this. It's got a little bit of tight headset. Why not? Let's back it off. Wow, that's really tight. Let's see. That's going to be a job. They have to come to that. It would help if I went the right way. That sucker is seized tight, so there is an option of possibly getting the adjustable cup and moving it a little bit. And oh, I know that I took the stem off earlier and it is not aligned, so I will have to go back and align the stem. I like to do that when it's on the ground so I can look over and straighten the stem and the wheel. That feels pretty good. It's about as good as that's going to get. I need to flip that derailleur cable. The derailleur cables are usually the last ones I cut because I know it is going to be the one that needs an adjustment if I cut it too soon, and there's always that possibility. So I made sure that was shifting very well, and then flipped the cable. This bike will be better than new, especially with the brakes, the pedals, everything shifting. So I know certain parts of this were not the right, the bottom bracket adjustment were not the right adjustments when they bought it. You can see it. I have all the gears. I have good brakes. Oh, I always like to turn my brake cables, if I can get in the picture here maybe. Anyway, I like to turn them in a bit. I know it's kind of dorky and it looks a little, but it's a little kink at the end of the cable. Because I like these out of the way. Kids' feet don't hit them. You knock the caps off and fray the cable, then they stick their foot with a frayed cable. And so I know it looks a little funky, but it's out of the way. I know it's not going to hit anybody. And that bike is good to go. All right. Oh, just a quick, if you want to see it, this is the wonder and the majesty of all the tools. Just a couple of examples. If you're a professional, keep that nice and straight. You know exactly where they are at all times, and that's within one step